hundreds of millions of dollars of lawsuits against Donald Trump, billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars in lawsuits, hundreds of billions of dollars. You know, these wrongful termination lawsuits are going to start flooding in. It's going to be a tsunami of them. Every day we're hearing about Donald Trump and Elon Musk with the Office of Management and Budget firing more people. We're learning about different agencies, the terminations at the FBI, terminations at the DOJ, terminations at USAID. Then when supervisors are defending their staff and employees and say they shouldn't be fired, this is a wrongful termination, then they get fired, which is the ultimate form of retaliation. And, you know, normally in these, you know, termination situations, Harry, because there are human resources positions within the government, the Office of Management and Budget is also supposed to handle itself professionally. Terminations are handled very carefully. Usually the supervisors and their supervisors will be on board with these things, and the supervisors and their supervisors don't also get terminated. And then those supervisors make statements that these terminations are unlawful and illegal, which means you're getting this mountain of smoking gun evidence that all of these terminations are unlawful. Like, there's these are federal positions. And a lot of these positions, for there to be terminations, there has to be cause, there has to be diligence done, investigations done. Otherwise, there are wrongful terminations, and there are lawsuits for that. And who pays for that? The taxpayers are going to pay for that. And we're basically talking about huge portions of the government. So if we're talking about, Harry, 500,000 wrongful termination lawsuits that get filed throughout the country, does the DOJ, one, because it's the DOJ that has to litigate this through their civil division, which, by the way, Trump is gutting. So do they even, are we going to start seeing default judgments because they don't even have the staff to respond to all of these lawsuits? Is now the DOJ going to have to hire private law firms? We, the taxpayers, are going to be paying billions of dollars to even defend the litigations, yet alone the verdicts, which are going to have punitive damages and massive amounts of damages based on the conduct. No one's really talking about this, Harry, but isn't that what's going to happen? A massive amount of lawsuits that aren't going to be able to be fought because there's no one even working at the DOJ.
And, you know, I got to say that's kind of the least of it. First, you're 100% right. I was a U.S. attorney. We had, you know, how it is when you're the manager somewhere, one or two employees take up half of your time. Firing them, it's like a crazy obstacle course of all kinds of barriers and regulatory law, very well established, and it's a nightmare. That's why, by the way, some of these people, what you do is wind up reassigning them to a terrible position that you can do without the same degree of problems. But yeah, so just for starters, the firing people in a wholesale way, it's going to cost the government all kinds of money because they are going to lose. That's just for starters. It's also, of course, going to cause the government, but more the people, all kinds of trouble because they don't have, not just the rank and file, but at least in DOJ, Ben, I mean, they fired some of the most important respected institutional memory that you've looked to, including the number one career person always. So that's for starters. And I just keep coming back, even though it's not the first way we're looking at it. But if there were even a single person, if you can go into the Department of Justice and say, I want the name of anybody who happened to do their job in a Donald Trump case, righteous case, and therefore we're going to fire them. That just goes to the marrow of what the DOJ is about. But yes, like many other things he's doing, it's going to cost whom? It's going to cost the taxpayers. The OMB freeze now that are denying people all this necessary life-saving services, the possibility that somebody will be at the head of HHS who doesn't believe in vaccines. All of this really is served up to jeopardize the American people, including the people who voted for Donald Trump, who may well depend even more on government aid. But the basic idea that somehow you could go into the FBI, the acting deputy attorney general today said, give me a list of everyone in the FBI who worked on January 6 cases. And that's not to send them birthday cards. And we're talking about when this is the biggest investigation in DOJ history. It totally fanned out to all the branch offices because they're looking and trying to find out who are these people, where are they from. So any subpoena, any interview, any just participation in an arrest team, which you bring in a lot of force for, that those people are potentially subject to some kind of discipline. So a complete kind of purging horror show for the Bureau. And of course, the people who are spared are totally afraid, just where Trump wants them. A really huge implication for the federal fisc, but also criminal, justice, people who aren't, crimes aren't going to be prevented and they're not going to be investigated, but just, at its core, so antithetical to what the DOJ and FBI is supposed to be about, so nakedly raw, political, and all based. This is where I always start. People, know who follow the Substack with a lie. It's always a lie. And here the lie is that there was something politicized about the prosecutions against Trump and the January 6 offenders. And to the contrary, it was in order to investigate the worst crime against the Constitution, maybe in our history, that everybody solved, to try to keep power from being peacefully transferred. But he's got this obsession that I think is still the driving force in so much of this, to try to erase it from the pages of history. So on top of everything else and all the injustice of it, it's all based on a lie, a demonstrable lie, a ham-handed lie. We're in really woeful shape.
There was the, constructive discharge, which basically means, for those who don't know, forcing out someone to resign, making their lives unbearable, of the top Treasury Department official right now, a bipartisan guy who was basically in charge of the payment systems that deliver your Social Security checks and medical payments and loans and really any form of kind of government funding that goes out. It goes through a system. There's a massive database behind that system. Trillions of dollars a year flow in and out of that system. All of the reporting out there now suggests that Elon Musk wanted his hands on that system. And so Elon Musk and his lackeys, who are now running our government, and again, this is someone who's an oligarch and a billionaire who has his own self-interest in his own kind of corporate deals. And by the way, so Harry, you have now personal privacy data, our information, learning about who's getting what amount of Social Security. Is this information even secure anymore? We've heard about the government email systems essentially being compromised with all of this weird spam and stuff being sent to all of these officials. So there's even, I'm thinking from a liability exposure. Obviously, we're reporting on the danger to human life. I don't want to in any way undermine that. We're doing a legal analysis, but we all may be class action participants one day in a massive data privacy breach, and it would be crippling to the government. What do you make of all that?
It's an absolute dystopia, and it's not simply, there's a lot of malice afoot that is really ill that has not been thought through and the like. But there's such a high chaos incompetence factor. It's been reported, Ben, that this debacle of an order saying, oh, we're going to take away and freeze all aid was somehow just written out by a 28-year-old recent graduate who's in the White House, and it just happened. It's certainly the case that people, I understand, and Trump has really promoted this, have suspicion about government, worry about whether bureaucrats and the like. But man, oh man, we depend on government every day. There are mechanisms to be used and that should be used if they're either lazy or not doing their job, etc. But there's so many kinds of essential health and safety and life kind of pieces of oversight that you look to people in the agencies to do. And this kind of toxic, everything's a deep state, Kash Patel, I'm going to close down the FBI, make it a museum of the deep state. We're going to find out how ludicrous and dangerous that is after it's too late. He's done a half a dozen things right now that have made the country less safe, starting with these pardons, right? So yes, there's 16 different ways to look at this, all of them pretty bad, but certainly one of them is the very short-sighted way in which they're going to make people's lives, disproportionately the people who voted for Donald Trump, really worse, and maybe even tragically worse.
There's a level of incompetence within it as well. There's also a poor execution of their torture, which makes it somewhat extra torturous as they kind of take multiple hacks at it versus just doing it the right way. And it's like, all right, just what do you do? But with
that's why people give money to the executioner. Make it a clean blow, please. Yeah.
But with that, Harry, it does provide opportunity for lawyers to work within those margins, though, or work within the hacks to try to avoid the next one. And that's where we come in, and why we point out these issues is to bring visibility to it, but also to promote the solutions of how you stop the next blow before it happens. Everybody, make sure you subscribe.
What can I give that 30 seconds though, Ben? First, because it's absolutely true, and what all of us should do, I try so hard to have people do is call out the lie again and again and again. But in addition, there are battalions of lawyers lining up, ready to fight back with their own professional services. There are people who've been aware of this and are starting to march on the barricades and representing some of these folks. So yes, send an email or whatever. There are ways to get to them, and there's concrete help for the people whose due process rights as employees have been completely bulldozed.
Well, there you have it. Make sure you subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel, the Talking Feds podcast, and the Talking Feds Substack. It's where I get my legal news from. One more time, Talking Feds YouTube, Talking Feds Substack, Talking Feds podcast. Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Ben.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.